the Jacqueline Renee Show with your host, Jacqueline Renee Duncan. Join us on Zoom every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern for inspiring, informational, real talk conversations like breast cancer survivors, writing and publishing your book, pandemic updates, and minding your money. Remember to live, love, and laugh. The Jacqueline Renee Show is a Philip and Jacqueline Duncan Ministries production that airs on Zoom every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Enter Zoom ID 558-997-5815. We'll see you Wednesday on Zoom for the Jacqueline Renee Show with your host, Jacqueline Renee Duncan.
Welcome to the Jacqueline Renee Show. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone in Facebook, Zoom. It is a beautiful Wednesday, although here in Maryland it's cloudy, but hey, we still saying it's a beautiful Wednesday. It has nothing to do with the outside. It has everything to do with what's on the inside. So we want to just welcome you to the Jacqueline Renee Show. Today, we are going to be talking to a parent and a teacher and get their perspective on virtual learning. So I'm excited because we've been in this pandemic now, you guys, for a whole year. Oh, yes. And I know some parents, I know the teachers are probably really frustrated by now. But hey, it's been a year, so most of us should be able to, get into the swing of things by now and, make it work. So I'm excited to have Sandra Bonds on today. She's going to talk to us about the teacher perspective of virtual learning. And then we also have Andrea Potts, who's going to talk to us about the parent side of virtual learning. So go ahead and text your virtual learner parents and teachers, tell them to get on because they're going to get some great information on today concerning both areas, because I know both areas is a challenge for so many of people. And so we're going to dig right into it. But before we actually go and talk to these two great women, we want to just give you some facts concerning women's health this month. Today, we want to celebrate Anna Julia Cooper, who was born in 1958, but she passed in 1964. She was a visionary Black feminist leader. She was an educator, she was an author, and she was an activist. She was born into slavery in 1858. She became the fourth African-American woman to earn a doctorate degree when she received her PhD in history. So again, she was actually born in 1858, my apologies. But she was born into slavery in that time. So let's go ahead and get to talking to these women that's going to share some great information with us concerning virtual learning. I know, even with the women and the men who are actually at home working, it's a challenge. I know people are probably tired of being on Zoom. It's like Zoom meetings back to back, and Zoom, I got to do a Zoom this, Zoom that. And so I think some of us have Zoomed on out. Yes, Andrea Potts is shaking her head. Yes, Zoomed on out. But we're going to talk about this. First of all, I want to just introduce Sandra Bonds to you. Sandra Bonds is a minister. She has been a member of IHP for almost 13 years. She is an overseer. She is our overseer of the youth department. She is married to her husband, Dale Bonds, for over 20 years and have a son, Bryson Bonds, in his freshman year, almost coming out though, at North Carolina A&T University. And she also is an assistant principal. So she's going to be able to help those teachers out there and also those parents maneuver through this. Also, Andrea Potts, She is a Delaware resident for 20 years. She lives with her husband and two children. She has an 11-year-old son in the sixth grade, and then she has a 7-year-old daughter who's in the first grade. She's the director of operations at a national Medicaid managed care organization. She's supporting her children as they are trying to learn as virtual students for a year now. And she also is an ambassador for Stella and Dot. Welcome, both of you. Thank you so much for being on the Jacqueline Renee Show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I know this is going to be something that parents that are out there, those parents that are actually on Zoom or on Facebook Live right now, they need this information. They need to be encouraged to know that they are not in this alone. It's thousands, millions of people that have been in this predicament for a year now. Some people are still in it. Some people are going back into the classrooms, but then some people have opted out of that and still want to stay behind the camera. So, Minister Bonds, what has been some of the biggest challenges for educators in this virtual learning environment?
Wow, that is a very loaded first question and a very good one. I'm going to say from the perspective of an administrator overseeing what teachers go through each day in this virtual environment, it deals a lot with knowing which instructional strategies to use to engage the students in learning and to get them involved and to, somewhat with the older students to take ownership of their learning and of their knowledge. Instructional strategies in the brick and mortar would look the same, still look the same in virtual. However, you have to maneuver a different way with all of the new technology platforms that the teachers have to use. Another challenge has been students, I guess we might call them passive learners at this point. We're not in brick and mortar. So as you say, we're behind the camera. A lot of students don't show their faces on the camera for one reason or another. Students don't respond when the teachers are calling their names or asking questions or just trying to, push them to participate more and quote unquote show up every day. Another challenge, definitely my number one challenge, because I'm the overseer of attendance, school-wide attendance. Students are absent for one reason or more than one reason. And when I call parents to find out, what's going on, why is the child absent for 20 or 30 days? There are numerous reasons. One they say technology challenges. I have Wi-Fi problems. I didn't pay my Verizon bill or my, cable bill, so I don't have internet service. Students have to have a Chromebook, a device issued by the county, or they use their own personal device. So we have had a myriad of reasons as to why students are not attending as they would attend in brick and mortar. So those are my top three challenges that I can share right now.
My God. I mean, do you really have students in this virtual learning will not actually get on the computer?
Oh, my, Pastor Jacqueline, I can give you one example. We have last year in brick and mortar, over the past 3 years, I've been over attendance, school-wide attendance. So I've seen the overall school attendance go down from chronic absenteeism, go from like high 20s, 28%, to 3 years ago, let's say 22%. And then I've seen it come all the way down to last year before the pandemic, we were at 14% chronic attendance, chronic absenteeism. Now with virtual learning, we have gone skyrocketed back up to 28%. That is very high. That is very concerning on a state level, on a county level. It's very concerning to everyone because we want to make sure we know where our students are We have to account for all of our students. We have 730 students in my school, and it's just not a school issue. It is a system issue. It is a system problem, a system concern. So yes, we have students who don't log in at all, or some may get up at 11 o'clock and log on for the first time. So
My,
they're missing half of the school day, or they're missing all of the school day.
my God. I remember when my daughter, of course, Shakana, when the pandemic hit back in March of last year, I remember how they had to go virtual learning. And I goes in her room, and I do see some people are not showing their face. She's
Mhm.
still laying in the bed. And I'm like, get up, you're in school. And so it's like I don't see how they can actually learn that way when, I mean, although it may not be a lot of distraction, in their own bedroom or what have you, but if you're laying down, you're not getting really what the teacher is saying. I just think it should be a rule that once you log on, you have to show your face. So give that student, a chance to, wake up, put
Yeah.
on their clothes and sit in front of the computer. But of course, all parents are not the same. Guess what? I'm going to make sure she learns something. I don't want her to just be in front of a computer and the teacher's talking and she's laying down, falling back to sleep. I mean, come on.
You make a valid point, and we, on the other hand, we have to consider not every child feels good about his or her background or environment or what they're dealing with at home. Everybody's, not on equal playing field when it comes to how my house looks on the camera, or what do I show on the camera, or how much noise is in my background every day. I could have a house full of adults. I could have a house full of other children who are online, and we don't have the space. So there's so many factors, to consider in those situations.
Well, you definitely made a great point in saying that, to let me understand that there is so many factors in, because I just have one daughter. She doesn't have
Exactly.
five other siblings trying to get on and making all kinds of noise and everything. I do have nieces that had that system where she would put one in a corner, one
Yeah.
in this corner, and but still, it's still a distraction. It could be a distraction if you have like a 3-year-old that is running around and hitting you upside the head. And
Yes.
I mean, all of that has come to play. And I've heard parents and I've heard teachers all year long complain about, I mean, just the stress of it. It was just overwhelming for the
Exactly.
teachers and stuff. So I'm not even sure if you were just glad to get back into the building, or it was better for you to be at home. So give me your view on that.
Oh wow. Honestly, you've known me long enough to know that I am very passionate about what I do. And working with our students and parents in the community, for this is my 18th year in Prince George's County. I am glad to go back into the building. And not for me more so, but I'm glad for my students. I'm glad for the parents, because the parents have been faced with so much and so many challenges within their own environment and their own home situations. Even though we're going back in a hybrid model where students are just going 2 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and another cohort on Thursday, Friday, I look at it as these students, we did a glance over the number of students who chose to come back. Most of those students are the ones who are having attendance issues right now. So I just gave a big shout when I saw the names on the list and said, oh, they're coming back, they're coming back. Maybe if I can get them back in at least 2 days a week, that's going to improve. So I'm happy about it. Those who are coming back, I'm still happy about those who chose not to come back, because parents don't feel that they're ready. The students may not feel that they're ready. One sibling might want to come back, another sibling may not want to come back. So we have a divided household as well. And it's a lot going into the planning to make sure everyone is safe, making sure parents are assured, that students are going to be kept safe during the building. We're practicing COVID guidelines. We have a COVID compliance committee that meets bi-weekly. It's just so much that's going into this last quarter of the school year to make sure we're ready and to have all the PPE we need to monitor everything we need to do from day to day so that we can be as close to a new normal as possible, for the rest of the school year.
Wow. So Andrea, you have these children at home. So are your children attending virtually, in person? What are they doing?
So my sixth grader, who's an 11-year-old, he's full-time virtual. But even for him, what that means is that he does Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, live Zoom classes. On a day like today, Wednesday is what they call his asynchronous day. So it's independent study. So he doesn't have live Zoom meetings. My 7-year-old, my first grader, I just had her start hybrid actually last week. She was ready. She needed it. She needed a little bit more engagement. And as you can imagine, it's a little harder with the younger ones to actually get engaged with the Zoom. As you were mentioning, the Zoom is a factor. That's a distraction in and of itself. Unmuting and muting and cameras and, the background and people moving around. So for her, I opted to ask the school for her to go back to hybrid. She started last week. So what that means for her is that she is in the building Monday and Tuesday. She's home today and she goes back on Thursdays and Fridays.
Okay.
Wow. How do you as a parent kind of keep up with that? I mean, it can be challenging. I mean, at times that, well, I guess every Wednesday, both of them is shut down. I call it a mental break.
Yeah. At least a Zoom break. They still have their assignments they have to submit in. There's still some independent work, some study they need to do, but there's usually not a lot of Zoom meetings. Now, my daughter has a couple challenge groups on Wednesday. She'll get on for maybe like 30 minutes for little challenges, but it's not that, continual hours of constantly being on Zoom and that interaction.
Right.
But keeping up with it is just it's almost everyday recital. What day is it? What day am I on? Looking at the schedule, making sure I know where I am. Because I mean, sometimes you don't know. It's like we're already at Friday.
Yes. And I'm sure it has been very challenging for parents who actually work. You're trying to make sure that you're in a leadership position and you're trying to make sure that your career, your job is going forward, but yet trying to now make sure that, like you said, that they get on at a certain time, that they know when to get on, they know when to take the break, they know when to take the lunch. I mean, and you may be right in the middle of a meeting, a major meeting. And I'm sure that has happened, but then you're putting yourself on mute, screaming, it's 10:30, you need to get on now. I mean, that could be so time consuming, so stressful. And by the time 5 o'clock comes for you, you're ready to take a nap.
You must be in this house on a day-to-day basis because you just recited everything. It's all of that bias. So you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, that mental exhaustion definitely kicks in because you're not only managing yourself. And as you mentioned, I'm in a leadership position, so I manage a staff of people. So I'm taking care of them. Then I'm also making sure that my children are on target with what they need to do. You're right. I get notes slipped under the door sometimes during the day that says, I can't get into my meeting and I hear this paper slide under the door, or, so we have this communication back and forth about when my meetings are. If you need me, this is what you do. And, there was no roadmap for this. There was no, as parents, there was no way, nothing we could lean on to say, okay, here's this is what you can model after. No, it was you were thrown into it a year ago and you just figure it out day by day and make those adjustments as you need to. And even though I have been blessed actually to have the opportunity to work from home, everyone doesn't have that option. So it's as stressful as it is, knowing that even with all of that, the fact that I am able to be here, I am able to kind of peek in and make sure their cameras are on and they're engaged, and I can fix lunch and things like that. Some of the other students actually still have to go to the building to pick up lunch. All of those factors, we have devices, I have Wi-Fi. So, those are some of the pluses, but even with that, absolutely stressful and exhausting.
Yes, and I can see that now. Of course, my daughter's gone on to college now, but when she, just those couple of months, I could see the teachers kind of getting a little frustrated on the other end because they would ask a question and nobody would respond. And right then, as if I was the teacher, I would be thinking nobody's paying attention. So both ends, far as the student and the teacher, it could be challenging because, they were thrown in. And I said about my daughter as well, she was thrown in the pandemic. She didn't get to graduate. She didn't get to go to the prom. And then she got to get on a Zoom every morning, in order to finish her studies. And she did good though. But, I believe later on in life that can affect our children, the way that they're actually have been thrown into these last minute things that we all had to go through and still going through it. So how are your children dealing with all of this? How they do you have to always constantly have to remind them of different things, or are they old enough to know to do what they need to do?
My sixth grader, he's definitely old enough to know what he needs to do. There's very limited oversight with him. And thankfully, he's been maintaining his grades. He's a straight A student. So, thankfully, he can handle his stuff. Every now and then, he might ask me a couple questions, but he's fine. Again, for my first grader, my 7-year-old, she does need a little bit more, guidance and sometimes reminders. I may write out a full agenda for her if I'm not available. If I have a lot of meetings, I'll write a list and say, here are your things you need to do, or log in here, log in there. Alarms, I have so many alarms on my phone that go off for every meeting reminder, this is the time you should be in this meeting. And sometimes we even use the microwave timer. If I can't be physically there to remind her, I will use the microwave timer as a countdown, and she knows when she hears that bell, she goes to log back into her Zoom. So it's a combination of things, but for her, a lot of times I can just at least set the path at the start of the day, and she's good to go. And she'll say, yes, I know I need to log in at this time. Yep, I need to do this. So they've definitely learned, as they say, they're more resilient sometimes than we are.
Yes.
They've been able to kind of pick up the schedule and navigate, sometimes they're more well off than we are.
Yes, and I believe that they just have that tendency to bounce back. So I believe all of them will be bouncing back very soon if they haven't already. So Minister Bonds, March 13th, 2020 was the last day of school for PG County. Before the pandemic shut down everything, what do you remember about the first few weeks of being home?
Wow. And I know it's something that I and others will never forget. The first couple of weeks, we came home, we didn't know how long we were going to be out. We just thought it would be 2 weeks, until things got better and, we got a handle on the virus that had hit. So at the end, just before that 2-week period ended, we got news from our CEO in the state, the governor, Hogan, saying that we were really in a real shutdown and we would not be going back to school until further notice. So we were looking at May at that point. The first 2 weeks, I sort of felt like, those snow days we used to have, getting up, looking forward to being home, looking at TV all day, watching a movie, eating 3 meals a day, having fun, just being with family, but understanding still that we were in a crisis. But that family time that we had those first couple of weeks, it was something that, we all treasured. I started to begin to feel like grief as time went on. I started
Yes.
feeling like the loss of a loved one.
Wow.
I started feeling angry because I'm sitting here, people were calling me, checking on me, who work with me every day in the school because they know I'm about relationships. They know
Yes.
that I'm a very personable person and love family. So I kind of get choked up when I think about it. But people were calling on me, emailing me, texting me, saying, "How you doing, Dr. Bonds? Just thinking about you." Even some of my substitute teachers reached out to me and said, "Hi, I'm thinking about you." So I had to come to grips, as we all did, and just accept what had happened and kind of come up with a new plan. What do I do now that we're out? And we had to go back to the school and issue Chromebooks and iPads to all of the students because now we were going to be home for the rest of the school year. So that was a new learning curve. That was some excitement around that time. Still knowing that we were in a crisis, still uncertain about the future and what the future holds. But we had those moments of ups and downs, and still having to manage this new virtual space. And I take my hat off to the parents, and I also take my hat off to the teachers, because as Andrea just said, we were thrown into this. We had no knowledge that we would be learning all of this new technology to be able to teach our students now from a distance in remote learning. So I take my hat off to everyone who just went through professional development in one day and learn 3 platforms, whereas if we had to do it in real time, it might would have been a week's training, but we had to learn it like within 24 to 48 hours. So I remember all of those emotions that I went through when it first happened, when we first came home. A lot of emotions.
Wow. So Andrea, you want to share about your emotions? What did you actually go through?
Very similar in that initially you thought it was temporary. You thought it was we want to get through this and we would be, rebound and go back to it. And then there was no go back to it. You and keeping in mind that whole year, although we're talking about a calendar year, what that was the ending of the prior school year.
Mhm.
So it was wrapping that up, conferences and all of those things. Then for me, I went into my pseudo summer camp that I had to facilitate here, right? So now they don't even have that something on their schedule to kind of educate them during the day. Now, what am I going to do during the summer to make sure they're not on watching TV all day and all electronics? So now I need to come up with another plan. And then we transition into, the second school year during that calendar year. So yeah, it was one of those things where you were planning for the temporary and then had to quickly shift for the long term.
Yes, I think we all had to realize that. I like what Minister Bond said. She felt like it was a snow day. That's a good point, because I think we all felt like it was a snow day, get to stay at home and get to, and I know some of us is tired of cooking. Cooking and cooking. I mean, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What? Um, you know, so I mean, we all had to shift something, the parents, the teachers, the students. I mean, the career woman, the career man. I mean, everybody had to realize that, okay, it's not just a snow day. This is a year. So we all had to shift. And Minister Bonds, I believe many people out there that's even listening now, they probably went through the same thing, that grief, that loss. It was because it felt like a loss of something that you are used to being, able to do, and then it's been taken away. Anytime anything is being stripped from you unexpectedly can cause grief. It doesn't necessarily have to be of a loved one. yes, those are the ones that we go to and say, the grief because my loved one passed. But if you lose, a career, if you, and that's probably how you felt. I lost something there. And so the grief came, and thank God that you were able to bring God in it and rework your mindset.
Right.
We always talk about, you got to have the kingdom mindset. You got to shift. And, thank God that we were able to shift our minds because, it helped us to adapt as people of God.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people didn't adapt. I mean, I was just seeing somebody actually sent to me the other day that the CEO of, I think it's oh my God, I can't think of the restaurant, but he actually had developed COVID, but then he came through COVID. I think it's Texas Roadhouse.
Okay.
Yes, he came through COVID, but he developed, I believe, ringing of the ears or something, and he couldn't take it, so he committed suicide. So I mean, all these things that has transpired since COVID, that you got to have a solid foundation in Jesus Christ in order to get through and continue to get through this, because guess what, it's still here and we don't know when it's going to leave, but we can say that we have that solid foundation. Jesus is the rock. And I'm going to run to the rock, which is higher than me, And so when we realize that we can just get underneath his shadow, he that dwelleth in a secret place of the Most High. Oh my God, just get underneath his shadow and just rest there. And he can just bring us through. But if you don't have that, my God, these things are going to happen. Depression, suicide, all of these things. So I just thank God that we all on here have a made up mind that we're going to serve Jesus. And Jesus is going to bring us through. And we win every time, no matter what the situation is. So I'm just glad that we're able to share our story on the show today. But Minister Bonds, I have one more question for you. Now, how do the teachers and the parents and the students communicate from day to day?
In my school, we have this app called Class Dojo. Many schools use it. Some schools use something we call Remind 101. And we used that last year when we first came home. But this year, we decided to go school-wide and require everyone to use Class Dojo app. So teachers have to connect every student email account and parent email account to Class Dojo so that they can communicate that way. They also communicate through Prince George's County student emails and with parent emails. Each teacher has what we call a Google Classroom online platform. So students are receiving assignments and posting assignments in their Google Classroom. Parents have a code to join so that they can go in and look and see what the students have been assigned, if the student has submitted their work, what grade they might have for their work. We also just communicate through a school messenger system, which is a robocall. So we send out a robocall either to the whole school family or to a certain grade level or to a certain group of students. We can customize it to send out a message to any group that we need to send it to. So we have various forms, and then text messaging. I think there are many parents who have my cell phone number and probably my house phone. Everybody don't have a house phone now, but I still use mine for parents, and they will call. I get calls on the weekend sometimes with questions about coming back to school or questions about the Chromebook is not working. Can I come in Monday and get a new Chromebook? So parents do communicate with us, and I always like to let parents know, that I have an open door policy. They can email us through the school dojo account as well. So whenever the principal gets a note for me, she'll let me know it's for me to address, or vice versa. If I have something that the principal might need to handle, I'm communicating with her through text. We don't mind texting on the weekends. So I try to make myself available, as much as I can for staff, students, and parents.
That's awesome. I'm glad to know that communication has always, stood there and is still continuing,
Yes.
because I believe the students as well as the parents needs to know that they can contact the school as well as the teachers. So, Andrea, what are your tips for parents managing virtual students? Give us some of your tips.
I would say one is definitely is structure, to the extent possible. So again, the daily schedule might fluctuate a little bit, but getting up at a set time every day was something that I still maintain it even through summer. You have to get up at a certain time, put some clothes on, get dressed, like, so keep a normal routine. So that's one. Structure for the parents. I also would still say, and I know you talked about it in another one of your sessions, but that self-care, and it looks a little different, I think, on a daily basis, but making sure I'm eating well, I'm sleeping, I'm exercising, but making sure that I'm taking care of myself so I can show up the best that I can on behalf of them and do my job well. And I don't every day get a chance to do everything. I don't drink all my water and exercise every day, but I at least try to make sure I don't go too long without hitting all those components. So I definitely think that self-care is big, because again, when you don't do that, for me, I noticed that stress level, you can feel it go up a little bit more.
Yes.
And then that, again, affects how you're showing up for them. So structure, self-care, I would always say, in going to, the point about communication, keeping that communication going with the teacher, advocating for your children, getting involved in what they're doing, and advocating for them. My children happen to be ones where they needed to be challenged. It wasn't that they were necessarily struggling with keeping up with the curriculum. I noticed my children, or especially, I should say more specifically, my daughter, she was becoming disengaged because the work was not challenging for her.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult from a teacher's perspective, doing the best that they can, but you're trying to manage 25, 6, and 7-year-olds on a Zoom call, all with different learning levels. In a classroom, they would normally be able to break them up into smaller tables and do some independent work. They can group children by, strengths and in person. But on Zoom, it was more challenging to do that. So I had to continue to make sure that communication was there with the teacher and say, she's really struggling with staying engaged on your call because she knows how to do this work. So what can we do to kind of work with her? Because I want to keep her engaged, but we're struggling there. So I would definitely say continue to be involved with what's going on with your students and continue to advocate for them, because teachers always don't pick up on things or may not be aware. Again, they have a heavy workload, so we have to be their advocates. So those are some of the things I would definitely say, tips for parents while we're going through this. And very quickly, I'll be trying to figure out some things to plan for the summer. So same thing, getting ahead as much as possible and starting to think about those things that are coming up next for the summer, and how you want to change your daily routine when that 8 to 5, not 8 to 5, that's my schedule, 9 to 3 schedule is no longer there for them. What are we going to do to put in place so they can continue to learn and grow?
And that's a great point that you just made about summer. You still have to 8 to 5 work your job, but then your students, your children are no longer in school. So what are they doing? From the point where you have to 8 to 5, what kind of activities can you give them? Most of them, hey, they're used to going to summer camp or, used to doing other things, not being in the home. So that is something that you're going to have to be creative, as a parent. But, my hat goes out to you, because you are very much of an advocate for your children, because you have a lot of parents that they're just worn out, they're tired, and they're not going to advocate because they need someone to advocate for them. And,
Very true.
just being real, and so again, like you said, that self-care is so important, so you can continue to advocate for them. And hopefully next year, going into the new year, far as school, it'll be much better for, the parents, the teachers, the family, period. So it won't be so stressful on the family as a whole. So I thank you so much for sharing that information. So Minister Buns, and my last question for you is, now that the students are slated to return, what are expectations for the teachers and the students?
Wow. Our first day back in the building for our cohort B, Thursday and Friday, would be April 8th. We've been back in the building now off and on for the past 2 weeks with the staff. And our main concern, our primary focus is everyone's safety. Making sure that everything is measured up to COVID CDC restrictions, CDC guidelines. Everything that we have to go from making sure students have enough water. We're giving them water throughout the day. They get 3 meals when they come in. We have to have a plan in place, like which door they're coming in, which door they're going out. So we have a reopening plan on top of the CEO's reopening plan. Each school had to come up with their own reopening plan with our specific procedures and processes in place. So number one is safety for them, and to give them a sense of really a sense of belongingness again, starting all over again, getting to know you. It's like the beginning of the school year. So in August, we come back in, this would be the first time some of those students will get to meet their teacher, to even see them in person. So we have to have things in place for them to build relationships again, making sure we're interacting with the virtual students as well as now the ones we have sitting in front of us, face to face. Not to have anyone to feel slighted, because we have to be proactive in thinking about the what ifs, and plan for the what ifs, just in case something happens that we totally, didn't expect. We are working very closely with our custodial staff to make sure they're understanding and compassionate. If a teacher says, you know what, I need such and such in my classroom and it's not there. So we've created all kinds of documents, forms that we use to communicate, because we're not face to face, as much as we want to be. We have to make sure that we're not. We're still 6 feet to 9 feet apart. So expectations around safety is our first concern, and just making sure the students are still learning, those who are home and those who are in the building with us.
Well, I have one more question and either one of you can answer this, but I'm just curious on why they opened the school back up at the end of the school year.
Yeah, everyone has that question. Wow, we have, you all know that when Governor Hogan came out with his conference about a month or so ago, and for the whole, I'm going to say past 6 months, there have been urgency. There has been a push to get all the schools open, whether it be small groups or everyone back. We had already planned, our CEO, Dr. Golson, had already planned that we would have something in place like by December to start back in January. But I commend her on sticking to what she said from day one in 2020. It's about the student and the staff safety. And she stuck to that no matter what. So she used the data, she used the science to guide her decision making. When the numbers were trending back up, she said, no, December, January, numbers were trending back up too high, so we weren't going back then. Let's wait and see what the science and the data tell us. So as the numbers began to trend down again, I'm going to say this, nobody else said it, but it just coincided with Governor Hogan's conference. The numbers were trending down, so now it was a time that we could make a decision to safely reopen for small groups of our children. We have about 1/3 of our students who opted to come back to school. We have 730 students in the building. About 120 are coming back on Monday and Tuesday, and another 120 on Thursday and Friday. So about 1/3 of our students chose to come back. And I think we're just trying to give everyone a sense of belonging again, a sense of trying to reopen safely, because we don't know what the fall is going to look like. So at least if we have all these processes and procedures in place now to June, we have a better idea of what we need to do when we come back next August.
Great answer. Andrea, do you want to share your thoughts?
Well, where I am in Delaware, we've been open for a while.
Okay.
At least my school district, the school has been open for a while, with the parents having an option of bringing, doing a hybrid model, which is, a couple days in, a day home, or staying full virtual. So although that option has been made available for a while, that's when I was saying I just opted into it last week for my daughter. And that was solely based on the fact that I felt like it was time she needed it from a social and an engagement standpoint. You had to constantly balance that with, all in all, it's still her wellness, right? Whether I'm talking about the safety protocols in the building, or whether I'm talking about her getting disengaged, and I can see she's missing that social piece. So I had just recently opted into understanding that they test her every 2 weeks. They're checking temperatures. They're remaining social distance in the classroom. They don't eat in the cafeteria. They eat in their room. So once I felt comfortable with that, her engagement outweighed, those other factors for me. But the short story is we have been open for a while with the option. I just selected to do that most recently.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I thank you so much, Minister Sandra Bonds and Andrea Potts, for being on the Jacqueline Renee Show. I know the parents and the teachers that are out there looking and listening got some good tips from you, Andrea, and got a better understanding, the parents of the teacher's perspective. So continue to do what you do. Continue to be that great parent that you are, and advocate for your children. And also, Minister Buns, continue to be that great vice principal, and loving on your students, and being there for those parents. I'm telling you, this is what's making the world better, because of people like you. So thank you so much again for being on the Jacqueline Renee Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
At this time, I ask you just to turn your attention to the screen for a commercial.
In His Presence Praise and Worship Temple, IHP invites you to attend its life skills classes happening now. Life skill classes will be held in 6-week sessions every Thursday on Zoom at 7:30 p.m. You can attend one of the 2 classes. Class 1, Dangers of Complacency. Class 2, Healthy Living. Register today at ihptemple.org. That's ihptemple.org. If you need any additional information, please feel free to email us at info@ihptemple@gmail.com.
Now, before you leave on today, I want to just give you some information on my purpose push of the week. This week, I want to encourage you to reevaluate your child's virtual learning space or your virtual workspace. I want you to choose a location carefully and keep it separate from, what you do far as, I don't want you to put your virtual in the bedroom, okay? The bedroom is for when you need to just sleep and relax and different things like that. I want you to put it in a spot where I came to learn. So I want you also to organize your space. Make sure your space don't have books all over the place. You don't know where nothing is. You forgot what you did with your homework because your homework is underneath this paper over here. So I want you as a child, if you're listening and looking, I want you to organize it. Know where your homework is. Know where your math book belongs. Know where your history book belongs, and just reorganize it. And make sure that it's organized so you know exactly where you can get whatever you need. Next, I want you to minimize distractions in your space. In other words, yeah, sometimes you can put some soft music, and especially like Andrea, she could put some soft music in her space to keep her calm because she don't want her stress level to go up and different things like that. But make sure there's not a lot of noise, in your space. People outside cutting the grass. That happened to me one day. I'm up here on a Zoom and I'm like, don't they know I'm on Zoom? They cutting the grass, was all loud and everything. So, eliminate those distractions in your space and have all your supplies handy. Have your plugins for your phone, plugins for your computers. I'm telling you, I've been to a Zoom call, and guess what? I was getting ready to go out totally because I didn't have enough charge in my computer. So make sure that you always got your computer charged. Make sure your phone is charged, and you won't have to worry about running trying to find where your charger and stuff is. So I ask you, just do these little simple things. Also, make sure that it's comfortable. Have a comfortable chair. If you got to put a pillow, like I have a pillow back in my chair, if you got to put a pillow back there to make sure that you're comfortable so you won't have any back pains or neck pains or anything like that, do it. It's okay. Make sure that you have good lighting and a flat surface to accommodate your computer, your books, and supplies. I'm telling you, it will help you in the long run. Now, let me give you some love, live, and laugh facts. 6.9 million colleges and universities in America offer some form of distance learning, according to a 2019 report from the National Center of Education. And also, online learning is more accessible to all and helps learners to stay relevant in a quickly changing world. It allows for self-paced learning. And my last thing I want to say is online education is more family friendly. Many students prefer to study in the comfort of their own living space and their own schedule. So some people don't want to go and run back to the job. They don't want to run back to that building. They want to stay in the comfort of my home. Thank you so much, Minister Buns, Sandra Buns, and Andrea Potts, for being a part of this great show on today. Thank you again for being on the Jacqueline Renee Show. And don't forget to live, love, and laugh. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.